Hello, book friends. It is time once again for my monthly reading wrap up. I'm here today to share all of the books that I read in January. Hello, I'm Jen, and welcome back to my reading life, and welcome to another monthly wrap up video. Today I'm here to share all of the books that I read in January. Let me put my tea down because I read 14 books in January, and I am not sure how that happened. I think it was a combination of a few things. One, it was Epistolary January, and I just find epistolary novels move at a really good pace for me, and so I'm able to get through them very quickly. I also listened to 4 audiobooks. So 4 of the books that I read in January were audiobooks, and I do think that definitely helps. One of the books that I read was a book of poetry, which was, of course, on the shorter side. And one of the books that I read was actually one that I had mostly read in 2025 and was just finishing in January. So I think that all kind of combined together to make for 14 books finished in January. And I'm not going to dilly-dally at all, so grab yourself a cuppa and let us get into the books. I've had to bust out my notebook because since I listened to so many audiobooks, I also read a couple of books on my Kindle, and I do not want to forget to mention anything, so I'm going to refer to my notes to get me through this video. Of course, I had 2 very big read-alongs happening in January, the first of which was Jane Austen January, or January, as we like to call it here. And this year we read Sense and Sensibility, and I'm not going to really talk about it because I feel like I have talked about it so much this month. I will have links to both of my live stream discussions of Sense and Sensibility down in the description box below, so be sure to head over there and you can hear my thoughts and all of the other commenters' thoughts, and my lovely friend Beth from Small Home Comforts joined me for our final discussion. So if you want to hear about Sense and Sensibility, head on over there. But suffice it to say, this still remains one of, if not my top Jane Austen novel. I go back and forth between this and Pride and Prejudice, but it's a very close first or second place. They are neck and neck. I just love Eleanor so much. I am an Eleanor, and so that's why this book is so close to my heart. And then also for Jane Austen January, just for myself, I finally wanted to finish Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney, which I started, oh my goodness, I want to say in either spring or very early summer last year. And then, you know how that happens sometimes, you just get distracted from a book for no particular reason. And I'd been wanting to pick it up again, and it just wasn't the right time. And I thought January was the perfect time. And of course it was. This is such a wonderful book. I cannot recommend it enough if you are looking to read more about the writers who would have influenced Jane Austen. So this is a rare book collector's quest to find the women writers who shaped a legend. So Rebecca Romney shares 8 women authors who would have influenced Jane Austen, from the likes of Frances Burney and Anne Radcliffe to maybe some you haven't heard of, like Elizabeth Inchbald or Hester Lynch Thrale Piozzi. So I found this so utterly fascinating, and now I am definitely going to be seeking out the works of these women featured in this book and read books by them. This has definitely influenced me to find some more women writers that have sort of been left behind and shouldn't have been. So, wonderful book. And then I had a bit of a Jane Austen January fail. The book I picked as our optional read for anyone who wanted to read this along with me was Jane Austen's Selected Letters, and I did not finish it. That is how far I got. Not very far. There were a few of us reading this, though I don't think very many people picked it up, and I think everybody had the same reaction. We all felt a bit like we were listening in on gossip of people that we don't know anything about. The letters in here are very gossipy, and they talk about a lot of people in Jane Austen's life. I mean, her family members whose names are more familiar, but then friends and other relations that just aren't. So I'm not giving up on this book. I am going to actually add this to my basket of slow reads. And then I think I might just pick this up and read a letter or two at a time and just finish it when I finish it. So I didn't get it read all the way in January. If anyone did, let me know. But I haven't heard from anyone who has so far. So I think this maybe lends itself more to a slow reading experience than to trying to just get through it all really quickly. And then the second January read-along that I participated in and was actually a co-host of was Epistolary January. And I co-hosted that with 4 other lovely ladies, Anne, Cheryl, Kelli, and Jeanette, and I will have all of their channels listed down below so you can go and check them out. We did a couple of group reads. So I hosted a New Year's Day read-along of 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, and I know a lot of you joined me for that. Some of you actually watched the replay of the live and read the book then, or read it throughout the month. I just love this book so much. This is maybe my 4th or 5th time reading it, and I definitely think it is going to continue to be an annual read at the beginning of January. I just think it's a lovely way to start the new year. And if you've never read it before, I highly, highly recommend it. It's very bookish. It is definitely a book for book lovers. It's just so lovely. Can't say enough good things about it. Love it. Such a wonderful reread. And then the second group read that we had for January was the book Wired Love by, oh gosh, the author's name has just gone out of my head. This book was written in, I believe, 1901 or published in 1901. And it is the story of a young woman who is a telegraph operator, and she meets another telegraph operator. I say meets another telegraph operator on the end of one of the lines, and they strike up a friendship. And so the beginning of the book has some of their like telegraphs back and forth to one another, and so that sort of is the epistolary part of it. But then it actually does kind of transition more into just a standard novel. So if you are looking for something like that, it's just interspersed a little bit with some kind of epistolary aspects, but reads more like a novel. This had a very light tone to it. I won't say that I totally loved it, but there were some fun scenes in the book, and it felt very modern for the time that it was written. And there's actually an allusion one of the characters makes reference to, that at some point in the future, people are going to carry little devices in their pockets so they can communicate with other people, and felt very prescient. Obviously, we all have those these days, don't we, with our smartphones? So it was a fun book. If you're looking for something light, if you wanted to read something in February for Valentine's Day, I believe it is still free on Kindle. I will have it linked in the description box below. Otherwise, it is on Project Gutenberg, so you can read it for free there. But yes, so that was a fun read, and we did have a live discussion of it at the end of January, and I will also have that linked in the description box below if you'd like to check that out. We talked about Epistolary January in general, but we also chatted about Wired Love, so you can go and watch that if you would like. And then I read 4 additional epistolary novels for January. And first up is The Documents in the Case by Dorothy L. Sayers. I buddy read this with my viewer, Sherry. Sherry, thank you so much for reading this with me. It was lovely to discuss it with you. But this is an epistolary mystery. So this is written in the form of mostly letters. There are a few documents, like legal statements that were made by a few of the characters in the book. Basically, what has happened is a man has been poisoned. He has eaten some poisoned mushrooms, and his son is trying to find out how this happened. He doesn't think it was either an accident or suicide. His father was a mushroom collector, you know, someone who goes out and forages for mushrooms. Forager, that's the word I'm looking for. And was very, very knowledgeable about mushrooms, had written a book of like recipes with using mushrooms, all different varieties that you can find in the wild. So the book actually starts back in time, and it is letters amongst the man who has died, his wife, some neighbors of theirs, their housekeeper, and so the story sort of very slowly unfolds, and you really don't know what's going on for a long period of time, and the murder doesn't happen until well into the book, so you're getting all of this build up. I found it incredibly well done. I really, really enjoyed this. It was very different from Dorothy L. Sayers' Lord Peter Wimsey series. I couldn't put it down. I kept turning the pages and getting ahead of our buddy reading schedule. Apologies, Sherry. Just because I found it really compulsively readable. So if you're looking for an epistolary mystery, then I recommend this one. Next up is the book that we read for my Book Jenny's Patreon group. We do a quarterly read along, and January is one of the months we read a book together. And in January, we picked to read These Wonderful Rumors by Mae Smith. This is actually a nonfiction diary of Mae Smith's time during World War II, living in England. She was a young school teacher, so in her very early 20s. And I think we all agreed that the beginning of it is a little bit repetitive, just because that's what life is like. You know, you do the same types of things over and over again. But later on, the diary entries do kind of pick up as some things start to happen in Mae's life. So again, I felt like this was another book where I wish I could just take my time with it and not have to read it by a specific date. I do recommend it, especially if you enjoy diaries from World War II. Yeah, it was just fascinating to just really see what life was like for just a normal everyday person. So enjoyed this one. And then next up, I read the second book in the Mrs. Tim series by D.E. Stevenson, which is Mrs. Tim Carries On. And I just love Mrs. Tim, and I am so looking forward to reading book 3 now. What is there to say? So Mrs. Tim, she is the wife of I see a captain or something in the British Army. And so because he's like career military, they move around a lot because they have to follow him kind of from base to base wherever he's stationed. This one takes place during World War II. But she doesn't talk a lot about like sort of the horrors of the war. She really confines her diaries to kind of the day-to-day life that she's leading. So that was fun. And obviously this is a fictional account, unlike These Wonderful Rumors, which is nonfiction. I just love Mrs. Tim's tone. If you like The Diary of a Provincial Lady, I definitely think you would enjoy Mrs. Tim. Again, this is written in journal or diary format. And yes, it's just lovely, full of D.E. Stevenson's wit and charm and her lovely descriptions of Scotland. So if that appeals to you, then definitely give this one a read. And then my final epistolary read for January, and I think this is my favorite read of the month. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this. I'm going to show you the spine because this doesn't have a dust jacket on it, and that is Thursdays Till 9 by Jane Trahey. I should put that straight, shouldn't I? So this is an epistolary book written in, well, there's letters in it. There's also inter-office memos, because this is very much a book about a young woman in her career. Our main character is, let me find her name, Penelope Smith. And this takes place, it starts in 1979 and we go through about mid-1980. It starts out and she is writing letters to some different companies looking for a job, basically. And she ends up taking a job with this sort of fancy department store in Texas. And so she moves to Texas, and we just kind of follow her along as she gets settled, as we meet all of the personalities that she's working with. And she writes letters back home to her mother and also to her boyfriend. And so you just kind of, you know, learn about her and what's going on. But what makes this so funny is that you just see office politics at play in their worst and funniest possible ways. And you see all these things happening, and I could not stop turning the pages. I mean, it's a very easy read. Most of the pages look like this, so there isn't a lot of text on every page. So it was a very quick read. I think I read it in about a day. But if you can get your hands on this, I don't think it's in print anymore, but it is so fun and funny and witty. I loved Penelope's voice that Jane Trahey gave her. It very much reminded me of one of my favorite books, which is called Business as Usual, which is another epistolary book, and it also follows a young woman working in a department store. They're very similar, set in different time periods, in different countries, but if you liked Business as Usual, you will definitely like Thursdays Till 9. I can't gush about it enough. I loved it. And I want to say a thank you. I'm sorry, I can't remember which of my viewers recommended this book to me, but thank you so, so much. It was exactly what I was in the mood for, and I loved it. It's a new favorite for sure. And then next up is the book that we read in January for the Cozy Reader Book Club, and that was Penny Plain by O. Douglas. If you like D.E. Stevenson or other authors like D.E. Stevenson, you will love O. Douglas. I am now a huge fan, and I cannot wait to continue on and read more by her. Penny Plain is the story of a young woman, Jean, and she basically takes care of her younger brothers. She has two younger brothers, and their parents have both passed away, and so she is sort of head of the family, and they live in this village in Scotland, and, you know, it's just sort of going about their day-to-day life. And they don't have a lot of money, and so that's kind of a worry. And then this middle-aged woman, whose name has just gone out of my head, comes into their lives, and she boards with the woman who lives next door to them, and so they strike up a friendship with her. And you just kind of follow along with this slice of life story. It is very cozy. It's very domestic. There's a little bit of romance. Oh, it was just utterly charming, and I loved it. The only thing that I found challenging is there is a lot of Scottish dialect in it. We talked about this at the Cozy Reader Book Club discussion. I kind of felt like I needed a translator, but as I went along, I got more into the rhythm of it. But it was a challenge, and I could have used some translation on a few things. But other than that, so delightful. Can't recommend it enough. Loved it. Can't wait to read my next O. Douglas. Next up is the book of poetry that I read, and this is It's Hard to Be Hip Over 30 by Judith Viorst. If Judith Viorst sounds familiar, it's because she wrote the children's book Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. If you grew up in the 1970s and 80s in the US, you probably read that book. It's wonderful. But this actually has two poetry collections. So it has the Hard to Be Hip Over 30, and then it also has People and Other Aggravations. Now, these were all written, I want to say, during the 60s and 70s. Yes, it was first published in 1968, and then also 1971 was, I think, the second volume, People and Other Aggravations. And they are very much of their time, the poems in here. But for me, it just had nostalgia to it because it just kind of took me back to sort of my childhood. And even though she was dealing with adult themes, you know, like marriage and motherhood and kind of the swinging 60s and different things like that, it just still kind of harkened back to a different time. So I just really enjoyed it. I mean, is it my favorite volume of poetry? No, definitely not. But if you're looking for some humorous poetry, Judith Viorst is a good bet. And then lastly are the 4 books that I listened to on audio, most of which were mysteries, but the first one was nonfiction, though it is sort of mystery adjacent. And that is Poirot and Me by David Suchet. And I can't remember what prompted me to start listening to this, but something did, and I'm so glad that I did. It was just so fun to read about David Suchet's journey as the actor who we all know as Poirot. I'm sorry, but nobody else holds a candle to him. He was just perfection as Poirot in my book, and it started me off on rewatching the Poirot mysteries. So I'm just slowly waking my way through them. When I don't have anything else to watch, then I just kind of put one on, and they're just lovely and cozy, and he's so wonderful. And you also get to learn about him and some of his other acting credits, and there's some things he's been in that I didn't know about and that I would definitely like to watch. Very much enjoyed that. If you're a fan of Agatha Christie, of Poirot, or of David Suchet, then definitely give Poirot and Me a read. I listened to the audiobook, as I said, and it was read by him and was fantastic. Next up, I listened to the second book in the Her Royal Spyness mystery series by Rhys Bowen, and the second book is called A Royal Pain. And in this we have, oh gosh, what's our character's name? Georgie? I think Georgie is our main character's name. If not, I'll put her name here on the screen. Regardless, she is a minor royal. She's like 34th in line for the throne or something like that. And the mysteries are set in, I think it's the 1920s. And she's just such a fun character. In this one, is she German or Austrian or something like that? This princess, the queen wants Georgie to kind of have her stay with her, and lots of hijinks ensue. And of course there are a few deaths in this one, and she sort of undertakes the task of finding out what has happened. And I'm just enjoying these. Again, this is only the second one I've read, but I'm very much looking forward to moving on to the third one, which I will probably listen to in either February or March, so stay tuned for that. And yes, I'm just going to continue on with this series whenever I'm in the mood. Definitely what I would consider in my cozy adjacent mystery category. So if that is also the type of mystery you like to read, then definitely give the Royal Spyness series a read. And then next up, because I want to get back to reading some Agatha Christie and to finishing up the few books that I have left of hers to read still. So I decided to listen to the audiobook of one of them, which is Passenger to Frankfurt. And I've heard lots and lots and lots of people say this is their least favorite of her books. And I would have to agree. This was so convoluted is the best word I can use to describe it. It started out fine. There is a man in a train station, and this woman comes up to him and wants them to switch identities because she's being followed or something, and something about the two of them, they have similar looks about them, and so he gives her his passport. And anyway, so that part was fine. And then it becomes sort of like a political thriller almost. But there were so many players involved and such a large cast of characters. I couldn't keep anybody straight, and I could not figure out for the life of me what was going on. I would listen to it and be confused, but I just didn't care enough to kind of go back and try to figure it out either. So I can say I've read it, but definitely my least favorite Agatha Christie to date, and will probably remain so because I don't have that many left to read. So definitely don't start with this one. Only read this one if you're trying to be a completionist like I am. Otherwise, I would just say give it a miss because it's not a good example of her writing. And then my final mystery that I listened to on audio was Enter a Murderer by Ngaio Marsh. And I am reworking my way through the Roderick Allen mystery series by Ngaio Marsh. I've read quite a few of them, but just kind of all out of order. And it's been a lot of years since I did that. A lot of years ago that I did that. And so I want to start at the beginning and just read through the whole series. So this is book 2 in that series. and it takes place in a theater, and a murder happens on stage during a performance. There's a gun that's used during the course of the play, and it's supposed to have blanks in it, and then of course it doesn't, and so the actor on stage kills one of the other actors, and you go through with Alan and try to figure out who killed this person, like who put the actual bullets into the gun. We obviously know that the actor who pulled the trigger, but who was it who wanted this other actor dead? So it was very good. I enjoyed it very much. Another solid entry from Nio Marsh, and I love any mystery set in the theater, and she wrote lots of mysteries set in the theater, so I'm excited to move on and continue on with that series as well. Really quickly, before I end this video, I have a few categories of books that I'm putting into my piles of possibilities every month. And so every month I want to make sure I have a mystery, a classic, a Dean Street Press book that is sitting on my shelf, a Persephone publisher book that is sitting on my shelf, and a comfort read. Now, I definitely covered all of those. In terms of mysteries, well, any of the last three that I just talked about would qualify. The Documents in the Case by Dorothy L. Sayers would qualify for that. For my classic, obviously I read Sense and Sensibility. I also think 84 Charing Cross Road counts as a classic. So definitely checked off that. I read Mrs. Tim Carries On for my Dean Street Press book, and I read It's Hard to Be Hip Over 30 for my Persephone title. And for my comfort read, well, so many of these could count for that. Obviously, 84 Charing Cross Road, even Sense and Sensibility, for sure, Penny Plain by O. Douglas, even Mrs. Tim Carries On. I think so many of these could have counted as comfort reads, so I definitely did a great job. First month out of the year of hitting those 4 categories of books. And again, I'm just putting these on my piles of possibility. If I don't get to them every month, that's okay. Those are the books I just really want to be reading this year. And so I'm hoping by at least getting them onto my pile of possibilities, it will just make it that more likely that I'll read those every month. And that will do it. Oh my goodness. This was a long wrap up because I had so many books to chat about. Let me know down in the comments below, what did you read in January? What was your favorite read in January? And are you now interested in reading any of the books that I talked about in this video? And I would love to chat with you in the comments about all things January reading. And if you're here but you don't have anything that you'd like to add in the comments, but you'd like to let me know that you were here, why don't you leave something purple? Because I read this big purple book, and my edition of Sense and Sensibility was purple. So let's leave some purple emojis, purple hearts, purple, I don't know what else is purple, but find some purple emojis and put those in the comments. I love seeing those, knowing you were here, and those comments really do help my channel, as do likes and also now hypes if you're on the YouTube mobile app. And if you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I would love to have you hit that subscribe button and join my cozy bookish community. I'll be back, as always, with another video very soon. And until then, I wish you a good book and a warm cuppa. Bye!